Containerize and deploy, a complete guide to running Docker apps on AWS ECS. This podcast is brought to you by Business Compass LLC. We are an Amazon Web Services advanced consulting partner. We build and migrate workloads to Amazon Cloud. Our website is businesscompassllc.com. Our phone number is 973-638-2228. Our email address is contact@businesscompassllc.us. Understanding Docker and its role in modern development. An overview of Docker and its importance in software development. Docker is a platform that allows developers to package applications and their dependencies into containers, ensuring the application runs seamlessly across different computing environments. By isolating applications in containers, Docker helps eliminate the "it works on my machine" problem, making it easier to develop, ship, and run applications consistently across development, testing, and production environments. Docker's lightweight containers are faster to start up and more resource efficient than traditional virtual machines. This efficiency makes Docker an essential tool in modern DevOps practices, where continuous integration and continuous deployment (C/CD) pipelines demand rapid, reliable deployments. Setting up the environment, prerequisites for deployment. Preparing your local machine and AWS account. Before deploying Docker containers to AWS ECS, you must set up your local environment and ensure your AWS account is ready. Here's what you need. Docker. Install Docker on your local machine to build and manage containers. AWS CLI. The AWS Command Line Interface, CLI, lets you interact with AWS services from your terminal. Install it and configure it with your AWS credentials. AWS account. If you don't have one already, sign up for an AWS account and create a new IAM user with administrative privileges. You'll use this account to interact with AWS ECS and other services. Developing a simple application with Docker. Creating a basic Python/Flask app and Dockerizing it. To demonstrate Docker's capabilities, we'll create a simple Python application using Flask, a microweb framework. Here's how you can build and containerize it. Set up Flask. Create a new directory for your Flask app and initialize a Python environment. Install Flask using pip and create a simple app.py file. From Flask import Flask. App equals Flask_name_. At app.root/def hello. Return hello, Docker. If _name_equals=main_. App.runHost equals 0.0.0.0 port equals 5000. Create a Docker file. In the same directory, create a Docker file that specifies how to build your Docker image. From Python 3.8 Slim Buster. Workdir/app. Copy requirements.txt. Run pip install r requirements.txt. Copy. CMD, Python, app.py build and test the Docker image. Build your Docker image using the following command. Docker build tflask app. Run the container to ensure it works as expected. Docker run p5000 to 5000 Flask app. Exploring Docker Compose for simplified container management. Utilizing Docker Compose to run containers efficiently. Docker Compose is a tool for defining and running multi-container Docker applications. Even for a single container, Docker Compose simplifies the process by allowing you to define your services in a Docker Compose.yml file. Create a Docker Compose.yml file. This file describes your Flask service. Version 3. Services. Web. Image. Flask app. Build. Ports. 5000 to 5000. Run Docker Compose. Use Docker Compose to build and start the service with a single command. Docker Compose up. Pushing Docker images to Docker Hub. Hosting Docker images for public access. To deploy your application to AWS ECS, you must host your Docker image on a container registry like Docker Hub. Log in to Docker Hub. Log into your Docker Hub account using the command. Docker login. Tag your image. Tag your Docker image with your Docker Hub username. Docker tag Flask app your Docker Hub username/Flask app latest. Push your image to Docker Hub. Push the image to Docker Hub. Docker push your Docker Hub username/Flask app latest. Deploying to AWS, integrating Docker with Amazon ECS, setting up AWS ECS for container orchestration. Now that your Docker image is hosted on Docker Hub, it's time to deploy it to AWS ECS. Create an ECS cluster. In the AWS Management Console, navigate to ECS and create a new cluster. Define a task definition. In ECS, a task definition is a blueprint that describes how Docker containers should run. Create a task definition for your Flask app, specifying the Docker image from Docker Hub. Create a service. ECS services manage the running tasks. Create a service that runs your task definition, ensuring your Flask app is always running. Configure load balancing, optional. To ensure high availability, you can configure an application load balancer, ALB, to distribute traffic across multiple ECS instances. Once your service runs, you can access your Flask app through your ECS service's public IP or domain name. Conclusion. Deploying Docker containers on AWS ECS is a powerful way to manage and scale your applications in the cloud. With Docker, you can develop locally and deploy globally, ensuring consistency across environments. Following this podcast, you should have a solid foundation in Docker, Docker Compose, and AWS ECS, ready to take on more complex containerized deployments. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Please share this podcast, visit our website and follow our social media links.